Everyone, thank you for coming along tonight. My name's Heather Thompson and I'm the Interim CEO at the Data Lab Innovation Centre. So tonight I'm just going to do a bit of the operational side of things before we get started. So thanks for coming out on such a horrible night. I have to say I had to think twice myself before I came out the door. There are no fire drills planned. We do have an online audience. So hello to all of you joining from the comfort of your own homes. And just for our speakers, when we're moving about, we just need to be mindful for the camera, for the online audience, that we are in view and can be heard at all times. So Alan, our cameraman, will wave at us if there's anything wrong with our microphones. So hopefully everything will go to plan. So this evening we're here to discuss the topic of data and AI in the education sector. Data and AI has had an undeniable impact to date as we continue to advance in the way that we learn and work with the rapid acceleration in technology. For adults, AI has created a new normal, but for the younger generation, it's going to become the new norm. And the potential for AI to create positive changes in education is vast, from freeing up teachers' time to offering personalised support to students. But it's equally important for us to remember and think about the risks and the challenges that come as we move towards adoption of AI. And it's so important that we ensure that this is done in a safe and responsible manner and remains accessible and for the benefit of everybody. And the plan for tonight's session is for us to kind of delve into each of these different areas as we move through the evening. So tonight, I'm delighted to have 4 panellists here to join me. They're going to give a short presentation each. I would ask that you take note of any questions that you have, but that you will get plenty of opportunity to ask those questions at the end. So we'll have our 4 presentations, panel discussion. Online audience, you will also get the opportunity to ask questions via the chat, so please interact as much as you would like to do so. This event, oh, I forgot my clicker, I knew I would do that. The one thing Paul said to me, remember the clicker. This event is part of the Data Lab community. And so for anyone who's not been to any of our events before, our community, we have a digital community, which is an online platform which enables data and AI professionals, academics, students and enthusiasts to connect, collaborate and learn. It's free to join. We have over 5,000 members from 80 countries and it's a really, really thriving community and a great place to be if you want to network, connect, share, learn. We advertise not just our own events, but we also advertise events that are taking place across Scotland and beyond. We have a jobs board where we are notified of any upcoming posts across Scotland. So there's an opportunity for people who are looking for career moves as well. There's an active forum. There's an opportunity for people to post articles. We also have a very successful mentoring scheme on there, where people can either go on and look for an AI, data and AI mentor, or they can actually sign up to give back. And if they would like to be a mentor, we are always looking for people to volunteer to participate in that. So if you haven't already had a look, please jump on, have a look, see if you fancy joining. And it's a really great way to keep connected with what's happening in the community. For tonight, if you want to be on socials, you can tag us on LinkedIn, post us about at the Data Lab community. We'd really appreciate you doing that for us. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to our first presentation. So with us tonight, we have Kate Farrell, who works on the Data Education in Schools project as part of the Data-Driven Innovation Data Skills Gateway. Kate's worked in an advisory role for the Scottish Qualifications Authority. She's also provided input into the Scottish curriculum and has a wealth of experience in developing resources both for teachers and students. So I'm going to hand over to you, Kate.
Thank you very much. Grab the clicker. Okay. Cool. Excellent. They told me 7 minutes, so I have 20 slides, so yay. We'll go quick. Now, there's lots of pictures. I'm not one for like lots of text on slides. So we do data literacy and data science with schools, with teachers, with learners from age 3 to 18, but also supporting college in terms of the data science resources we provide as well. So I'm just going to let you see some of the things we do to make data fun, because data, I think probably most teachers' first impression when you go, ooh, data science or data literacy, and they just get that look on their face going, oh my God, either panicky or this is going to be so dull. Data is not dull. So we think about data literacy in terms of the ability to ask questions, collect, analyze, interpret, and communicate stories about data. And that communication is really important for us. It's helping the learners not just make a graph that's going to go in their textbook, not just make an Excel spreadsheet that's going to stay in their OneDrive, but communicate stories, things that will make a difference. And we want learners to make a difference. We want to help learners become active citizens, data citizens, finding meaning in data, in their own data as well, being critical about the data that they're seeing and using, and to take action based on data in their own lives, in their schools, in their communities. And to help learners, to help teachers do this, we've adopted this framework called PPDAC. This is a framework from New Zealand, from statistical education in schools across there. And it's problem, plan, data, analysis, and conclusion. And that's being used not only in data literacy, but we've had teachers go, actually, this is really good for my advanced higher chemistry because they're rubbish at just doing a project. So we've used that and it helps them. So we're using that, but most importantly, using data to solve problems. So what sort of things, what sort of data are they using? So it might be personal data, not necessarily confidential data, but data about the learners. That might be what colour socks they have, are they a morning person or an evening person? It might be their step count data. We did a project at Newbattle High School, and the majority of the learners there that we were working with didn't realise that their phone was tracking their step count data. They just did not know that. But helping learners to understand the data that's being gathered about them. It might be data they create for fun, for games, for Top Trumps games, and having an idea of what might make a good, to then sort it out and arrange it. And maybe it might be a problem of having an evilness rating of 2 million versus -1 might be a problem in the range of their data for playing a good game. But this is kind of Pokemon-style cards or Top Trump-style cards, just getting learners familiar with classifying data, with organizing and structuring data. It could be personally meaningful data. Kids can get really obsessed about one thing that they want to find out loads about. So it could be it could be roller coasters. So it might be data that already exists on the internet. So there's data sets on information about different roller coasters, for example. Or it could be data that they gather themselves using free apps on their phone. So can you log the speed and the acceleration and your XYZ ratings when you're on a roller coaster or even on a swing? So gathering data that is meaningful to learners. Who can go fastest on the swing? Who can go highest? It might be local and community data. So it might be looking at air pollution data from around the area. It might be, we also have a project that is installing sensors, IoT sensors, in schools around the whole of the South East Scotland, gathering data about air quality, CO2 levels, temperature, humidity, all sorts of things. So can learners be looking at that and thinking about what is a good environment for learning, a good environment for human beings generally, for wellness? And that project has ended up with learners getting quite enthusiastic about some of this stuff. So we had one school of learners where they were thinking about what makes a good environment for humans. And then they started thinking about animals. What about other animals? So they dragged our colleague off to the Five Sisters Zoo, who were kind of going, yeah, you can install a sensor. Which animal enclosure do you want to put it in? So they ran right round the zoo and then dragged my colleague to the crocodile enclosure going, this one! So our poor colleague had to climb into the crocodile enclosure and install a sensor. Or looking at how can they change the effects of CO2 levels? So installing plant walls and things, or opening windows. Or they hide the sensor. Some schools have been hiding the sensor and getting the kids to look at the graph for the week and go, where do you think that sensor is now hidden? Is it warm? When is the light coming on and going off? When is movement happening? Is it, would it be in the boiler cupboard or the head teacher's office? That sort of thing. We get kids doing mapping data, for example, looking at global data. This is actually the EFI's open day, but we've been doing this with a large number of groups of teachers and learners, of mapping in the furthest place you've been from where you were born, your favourite place in the world, and the most boring place in the world. And just the conversations that it sparked of, why is that boring? Or, why is this one not boring? Why? So it's really interesting just sparking those conversations. Another thing that has sparked conversations is weaving data. So we did a project last year where we got 5 primary schools and gave them ribbon and asked them to weave different coloured ribbons depending on how you got to school that day. And so they did it either with the whole school, or they had different members of the community involved on their school fences, looking at how people travelled to school. And again, the conversations that then happen with the community about the data, about what it means, about communicating that is really important. Oh, that has gone too far. And in terms of data representation, we tend to avoid boring graphs. We're not an Excel training course or anything. Instead, we'll get learners gathering data and drawing information. So this is based on the Dear Data book. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a good read. So this is, for example, is a learner who throughout a week, the data that they've looked at, the media usage, the data about their media usage. And you can start to see patterns in there. This is somebody's clothes in their wardrobe. We've got a huge data bias here because she ran out of room to collect data and some of the clothes were in the wash. But that then sparks these conversations about, is that misrepresenting the clothes that you have on the line there? We also do data physicalization with learners. So, for example, we give them a graph of appropriate behaviours in different places, and we get them to create something with it. Whoop. This keeps clicking too far. So we get them to create something, a necklace or a sculpture or a mobile or a graph of some kind based on that data, picking an aspect of the data that interests them. What patterns do they see in that data? What outliers do they see that's confusing to them or interesting? And so representing that in buttons and beads and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, we've had learners creating playground, representing the park's data, appropriate behaviours for a park, in playground swings and slides of different length things. We do online lessons as well so that we can reach far wider group of learners. We've now had 50,000 learners taking part in these live lessons. So finding, using machine learning to find rhinos, coding their own data selfie and looking at data privacy and encryption, and looking at their carbon footprint and how much energy they would save by using solar panels. And we do escape rooms as well, data escape rooms, and the learners become agents of data, defense against temporal attacks. So they do things like finding the secret layer by mapping wind farm data and underground bunker data and all sorts of things, existing ones. Or we get them creating their own escape rooms or entering in competitions and things. So hopefully you've seen that with learners, with schools, it doesn't have to be a very traditional approach. It can be a very creative, interesting, engaging communication with learners. Brilliant, thank you.
Judy Robertson, who is the Chair in Digital Learning, also from the Data Education in Schools project based at the University of Edinburgh. So Judy's currently involved in research that uses arts-based approaches to consult young people about their views on the future of AI in schools, and is also looking at exploring the ways in which teachers are currently using generative AI. So over to you, Judy.
Thank you. So Kate and I work together, and she does the interesting presentations, and unfortunately for you, I do the really boring academic ones. So feel free to go to sleep for the next 7 minutes, and then Kenji will wake you up again. Okay, so we've heard about data literacy and how you can do that in interesting ways. I want to talk for a little bit about AI literacy in primary and secondary schools, because this is something which has suddenly crept up on people and has become a big issue. And of course, we know why it's become an issue. November 2022, ChatGPT suddenly became a thing that ordinary people would know about, that you might hear about in the news. And initially, a lot of the conversation was about, oh my God, people are going to cheat. But I think this is an opportunity to look at the future of education much more widely, about the potential for AI to transform education. And the whole cheating or not cheating is a sideshow. That's my view on it. And so UNESCO have some guidance about Gen AI in education. It's talking about how if we have a human-centered view on AI, it can open a public debate about what the point of education is. And I think, although we're having an education reform discussion in Scotland at the moment, it probably is a bit traditional, and we could be opening it wider. In fact, talking of that, the Hayward report on the future of assessment in Scotland, which was published last year, does mention how AI is important, and that having skills in AI and understanding of AI is going to be part of children's learning. They're going to need it to thrive in the world, either in the jobs market or just as everyday citizens. And so we know what the promise of AI in schools might be. I'll note that we don't have any empirical evidence on how good it actually is, but the kind of things that people say is it could help to reduce teachers' workload, and that's kind of the safer aspect of AI in schools at the moment. But there's the promise of personalised content, you know, the AI companion that knows your learning and maps your progress through. The idea of instant feedback is probably attractive to most people who've had to wait in line to get feedback from a lecturer or from a teacher. And the idea that you have somebody that can adjust the teaching towards your needs. And so some of my undergraduate students are saying that it's life-changing, like they don't know how they would learn without it anymore. But in a positive way, because they've learned how to use it in a very effective way for self-directed learning. There's the idea that you're just not embarrassed to ask your teacher or lecturer, or even your friend, because the AI is not going to judge you, so that's a good thing. But also my students are realising that they still have a place, that they have value that they can bring to any situation over and above what the AI can do. There's this idea of co-intelligences. What does a machine do? What does it excel at? And what do I as a person excel at? And there's lots of promise for educational additional support needs. For example, neurodiverse people or people with dyslexia, say, could be useful for summarising giant walls of text. But also, you don't want to give unproven tools to people who already have difficulties with some aspects of learning. That seems particularly unfair to me. So if we're going to use such tools to help learners, then they have to be really good at what they do. And ChatGPT is not really good at what it does. So we did a project where we spoke to 24 education stakeholders around the country, people from government, from the SQA, or Qualifications Scotland, or whatever we're calling it now, Education Scotland, that kind of thing, Scottish Government. And they were a bunch of people who really care about this issue, but had a lot of concerns. And I think Heather mentioned them in some of her opening remarks there. So this potential to increase educational inequalities if we're not careful about it. So we already know that although we would like digital provision to be the same across all the 32 local authorities in Scotland, it's just not. It's a patchwork of different sorts of platforms. And so you could have a postcode lottery opening up. And in fact, I think a postcode lottery is opening up at the moment. There's a potential for bias, and the lack of transparency is a potential problem. The plagiarism issue, again, raises its head, but we need to have like a better intuition about what constitutes cheating and what doesn't. And at the moment, we haven't had enough conversations within the education profession, I think, about that. The lack of reliability and the accelerated spread of misinformation go together. You wouldn't want children's only source of information about the world to be ChatGPT, They might end up with a very weird notion of the world in which it's perfectly safe to eat 1 rock a day, for example. And there's the kind of more societal issues about the social aspect of learning and how important that is. And when we talk to children and young people, what they say is that they don't want to lose their teachers and that human connection, the relationship they have with their teachers. They would like to use AI, that could be really useful, but they want their teachers, they want the humans in the room. And the teachers also value that connection. Which brings us to the idea of AI literacy. So this goes to what I was saying earlier about the idea that people need to learn the skills to thrive with AI in their lives. And that's a whole bunch of competencies about, from the ethical issues of should we be using AI to the very practical issues of how does AI work, and everything in between. And I think that you need to understand enough about how AI works so that you can understand accurately what the societal implications are going to be. So if you have the idea that AI is like magic, then you might have false expectations and misunderstandings of the impact it's going to have in your life. It's not magic, by the way. I probably don't need to tell this audience. So where we are in Scottish education at the moment, we have a working group across Scottish Government, Education Scotland and the SQA with the University of Edinburgh, and we're looking at possible frameworks for AI literacy across the curriculum, which I think is a step forward because we need some kind of consistent advice for teachers. It's too much to expect them to work this out on their own. Education Scotland are doing curriculum reviews at the moment anyway, and the idea is that AI should be worked into this round of curriculum reviews. So they're looking at maths, they're looking at literacy and technologies. And I think it's all of those areas actually, because the impact of AI could be across every single subject. Scottish Government are going to publish a new digital learning strategy, which will also consider AI. Not sure when they're going to do it, I think this year. And you may know that the SQA's current position is that AI shouldn't be used for current assessments. So you can't submit an AI output as your own, and you can't use it as a reference source at the moment. But all due to the SQA, all credit to them, because they are looking at the moment, they're trying to understand how AI can really support learning so that you can think about in the future what assessments should be like to assess the combination of a person and an AI rather than just a person. And that takes quite a lot, that takes a leap. The SQA is probably not the most, well, it's a very traditional organisation. And so to make this leap into the unknown is a difficult thing for them to do, but I think they're taking their time to do it. And it's important that they're taking their time because it's too big an issue to just quickly jump on a bandwagon and make decisions that would need to be reversed later. So some current projects that we have at the university, we're doing consultation with children and young people about what they would like to see in AI in the classroom. I already told you they want to keep their teachers. They also, bizarrely, I never expected this, want to keep the effort in their education. They don't want the AI to do the work for them. They want the struggle and the kind of the productive struggle of learning, which was good news, I thought. We're taking some of these arts-based methods and we're making them into a toolkit so that teachers are able to consult their own learners. So for any individual class or school, they could start saying, these are the acceptable uses of AI that we want in our school or class. We are just about to recruit 6 AI in residence teachers at the university who are going to work with us across a range of secondary subjects to develop resources for that subject to share with other teachers. And we're just about to start more consultation with young people about how they're already using AI. And that's quite important how we do that. We're going to do it with young people as co-researchers because I figure they're probably not going to tell adults how they really use it, but there might be a chance that they would tell somebody their own age. Particularly, you're not going to tell somebody from who works at a university and might look at an admissions form, or somebody who works for the SQA and might mark an exam. You're not going to tell the truth there, but you might be willing to be more frank if the researcher was somebody who was your own age. I'll just end on this slide here. It's my only fun slide, which is the book that we've just done, which is called Exploring the AI Jungle. It's a picture book for kids. So if you have somebody who's in upper primary school, maybe P5 and up, they might like to read this book. There's also a teacher's guide that goes with it. You can look at it for free online, or we have print on demand, and we're just about to do a print run for all the primary schools in South East Scotland. I think that is all I wanted to say, so thank you. I'm looking for, yeah.
Next up, we have Kenji Lam, who is Delivery and Engagement Partner at the College Development Network. For anyone who's not familiar with CDN, they are the principal improvement agency dedicated to advancing Scotland's colleges. I've known Kenji at CDN for a number of years now.
It's amazing because I look so young.
He never changed.
That's it.
He never changed. Huge range of experience with a focus on educational technology. And in light of the rapid advancements in generative AI, Kenji's current focus is on strategising educational practices to ensure that staff and students are well prepared for this AI-driven future. So, over to you.
I may have had AI write that bit, by the way, so I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. My one was worse. I'm just interested. Are you? I get the sense that I'm in a room of people who are a lot more clever than I am. Are teachers, lecturers, digital techie, clever people in general? Kind of. Okay, well, like, less educationalist is good because I can just rattle on and, you know, I'm quite believable, so you'll just go along with what I say. So this is awesome, right? Excellent. Right. Oh, data meetup. I'm in the right place. Right. Yes. Kenji, Japanese name, really common. Apparently, I always thought it was quite exotic. Kenji, do you know many Kenjis? Exactly, right. When I went to Japan, apparently in the 70s, Kenji, very popular name, equivalent of John. First class I went to, there were 3 other Kenjis in the class. Devastated, it did so many things to me. Today, talking about AI. There's so much to talk about. My daughter helped me with the next slide. She only wanted to show the video that appears somewhere up here because she just makes fun of me a lot. Pika, like if you haven't played with it yet, go away and play with Pika because it is lots of fun. There's so much going on. It's hard to know what to pick out. And there's so much noise here that it's difficult to know what to tell you because things also move so quickly. But the thing that comes back every time I go into a college, and I primarily work with colleges, is that people are still concerned about assessment. Although now I'm equally concerned that I'm not eating enough rocks for some reason. But assessment's a thing. Like that was all the headlines last year. People were just going, like, AI is going to ruin everything. It's just going to answer all the questions. I think they said the same thing about calculators many moons ago. But, you know, I get it. I understand. You know, there's a bit of panic going on there. And then the first thing that people would come to us and say, well, look, surely there's some kind of technology that will save us, that will tell us when the kids are cheating. Kids, you know, it's college education. It's a wide range, the ages from 16 to whatever number you can imagine. And they said, technology, it'll help us, it'll save us, it'll tell us who's cheating. But apparently, not so much. We've discovered that this technology doesn't really work in the way that we hoped it would. Although, to be honest, if there are any students listening, please just cover your ears. We're kind of keeping that a secret. We're kind of still telling our students that we've got this magic black box and that it knows when you're cheating. So every time you submit something, we'll know. So that's it. It doesn't quite work that way. So the thing about it, though, is people were kind of concerned. And a lot of the policies and guidance around this time reflected the concerns. The knee-jerk reaction was, we don't want this, stop! So this, the JCQ, they're like a big Quango type organizations that brings together all the awarding bodies across the UK. They kind of put out some general advice for the country. And they said, basically, we don't really want people using AI. Just stop, don't do it. Don't rely on AI. In fact, in some lines, they said, maybe you might want to consider just blocking it completely. Like, just take it off the networks. Don't give the kids access. Don't. And then possibly forgetting the fact that as soon as they stepped out of school, or if they had their phones, or if they went onto the internet, AI was still available. But that really informed a lot of the reactions from institutions. It was a funny time. There was panic at all sides. Colleges, schools, universities, all hyped up by the press. Somewhere in the summer of 2023, the Russell Group, I think, were the first to come out with a sort of set of statements that said, no, wait on, this is not going away. So we have to kind of accept it. And maybe we should start telling students and our staff more about AI and think about using it in a positive way, which sounds good. I mean, it is very positive. Colleges came out with a similar series of statements from an organization called JISC about 6 months later. It looks really like this one, by the way, but because I'm a college person, I can't say we copied it, but you know, plagiarism. So now we're at the point, somewhere after the summer of 2023, we're going, right, okay, we have to get students to use AI. So, but how do you use it? Like, what's the line? Because everyone said we can't use it to cheat, to copy, to plagiarize. What can we use it for? So we would ask lecturers this general question, and students, what kind of things would you use it for? Like, you can't expect it to just give you the whole answer, but maybe just give you like a rough outline of what your essay you're about to write might be. Maybe just like titles at the top, but not the actual answer. I'm going, oh, that sounds okay. And we would ask, and people would have various opinions, quite all across this board. And the SQA at the time, which Jen said, is quite right. They came out with only 2 statements, really, directly about AI. First one, kind of obvious, was don't get AI to write your stuff and then pass it off as your own. It's kind of like, I could have guessed that one. The second one, they wrote it in such a way that wasn't quite clear and made quite a lot of people believe that it just meant SQA says you can't use AI for assessment. Anything to do with assessment, you can't use AI. They said you can't reference it as a source. So if AI tells you that something happened in 1839, you can't necessarily believe that because it makes stuff up. You have to get your reference from a reputable source, like Data Lab or somewhere. Right, so those were the only 2 rules that were there. And in fact, oh, you're right, does that? See, it wasn't just you. Oh, okay, right. Maybe I've just had fast fingers. So later, in 2024, the JCQ, again, for the whole of the UK, came out with some statements and started coming around to the idea, going, yep, that's right. You can use AI in a lot of processes, even for marking, as long as there's a human still in the loop, making sure that things are going okay. And when it comes to like working out if people are cheating, teachers, you know your pupils the best, so you'll work out if they're cheating or not, somehow, through telepathy or some kind of thing. None of that was good enough, though. People still thought there's a gap with the SQA. The rules are not there. I don't know exactly how much AI my students can use when they're doing an assignment. The thing is, the answer was there all along. It was there, right, and it's as close as I am to you. It was like that close, and for years. And part of it is about, what is AI? What is it? Could AI be your best friend? Maybe. Yeah, okay, so no, I talk to AI. And I sit around the dinner table and I sometimes wonder, I could be here sitting talking to AI. It's in many ways, you can treat it like a person. It's not, but I mean, it is, but it's not, but a person. So the rules are there because if you think of AI as just another person who knows a lot of stuff, but gets stuff wrong, kind of like my uncle, there's a set of rules that govern that. It's about what comes under this term called reasonable assistance. And it refers to, if you're a student and you've been given an assignment, like you're meant to write it, and we grow up with a culture of kind of like writing like this and not sharing stuff and showing stuff. But honestly, half the stuff that I did, I'd be going asking my friends, going, what was that teacher talking about? What do I have to do? How do I answer this? I would talk to friends. I would sometimes ask my uncle, but he got it wrong more often than not. So I would mostly go to usually my mother and my aunts. And people would help you. And for time immemorial, there's always been this problem that there are other people who you can get information from. So all awarding bodies wrote a set of rules that said, this is reasonable assistance. This is how much those people, your teacher, your lecturer, your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your friend, can help you in any assignment. And it's quite a detailed set of rules. They say, no, you can't give, for example, the SQA say, you can't give like an outline structure. You can't put in headings. That's too much. But then it also goes into telling what you can do, and it gives you examples. And because it's not a person we're talking about, when we first asked the SQA, where are the rules? And they go, no, we don't have them, we're still thinking. They were there all along. And they do give us the framework because they tell us how much we can use AI in assessment. And that's a brilliant thing. The only issue is that AI is sometimes a little bit too helpful. A little bit too, so when you ask it for help, it kind of wants to share. It feels a bit needy, to be honest. It's like a bit like my friend Jack, he's kind of like overshares a bit too much. And so that's a bit of an issue. But as far as the goalposts and the rules and the lines are concerned, they are all there. We just need a bit of help from people who know how to use the technology to make sure that it helps us in quite the right way. That it doesn't overshare, tell us too much. It just helps us work through what we need. And if we can do that, this is going to be awesome, like literally. And dinner time will be great for me because I'll talk to my AI friends as well. My last point, I'm way over the 7 minutes. I apologize. The only thing that we face as a difficulty currently in colleges, one thing that we struggle with is we want students to use this stuff, but there are some barriers, and things like age restrictions are a big issue. Because currently, the most popular and endorsed AI model that we use within the educational sector is Copilot, because it comes with a lot of data protection and reassurances for our community. But at the moment, Microsoft says you have to be 18 or over to use their models. There's no exception to that. None. There was a bit of worry that we thought we could maybe ask parents for permission if you're between 13 and above, but that's no longer the case. Microsoft has stated 18 and above to use Copilot. So working in a 16+ set of institutions, we struggle with that. And so there are technical challenges, some of these license challenges that we have to look at and overcome. But those are the problems, and I'll save that for the next talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I could talk longer if you wanted
no.
to. I could go on and on and
Now
on.
Matt's just thinking, where am I going to get the energy to replace that? So, final presentation of the evening. We have Matt Jenner, founder of CourseSensu. So Matt's career is focused on digital education and development. He has got a wealth of experience in platform development, having led learning experiences for millions of global users at UCL and FutureLearn. And he's here tonight to talk about data, AI education, and CourseSensu.
Yeah,
so over
thanks
to you.
So much. That was a lot of energy, so I'm going to try and maintain it. But you've had a lot of knowledge and insight and energy, so I'll just see how I can go for 7 minutes. But hi, I'm Matt. I love data, I love AI, and I love education. So what a great format for this evening for me to come and talk to you about CourseSensu. I started CourseSensu about 15 months ago. I'm a solo bootstrap founder, so I've made a platform. It's got people using it. It's out in the market, and it's deeply using AI and education and data. So I'll give you a really relevant talk, I hope. But I'll just give a quick shout out to TechScaler, part of Codebase. I've been in their startup acceleration program, very, very supportive. So if you want to start your own company, come to TechScaler. They're all across Scotland. And I'm online as well. They're online too, sort of, for people in Scotland anyway. So I'm going to just very briefly talk about learning and development, or just L&D. I know it's a bit different to schools and it's a bit less different to higher education. But the reason being is Donald Taylor and Egley have for 2 years, which in the life of AI is a very long time, unless if you studied it in college in university in the 80s, which, well done, you were way ahead. But 2 years they've been asking hundreds of people in L&D, what do you use AI for? And the broad journey for L&D, but it does sort of get replicated, is you do discovery. So what are we making? Who's it for? What are the intended outcomes? Through strategy and design, let's build this thing. What are the assessments? What's the content? What's the structure? How do we put it all together? Then into delivery, that's teaching in another word. And then follow-up, which could be evaluation or sort of assessment and refinement and going again and again. And it's a cyclic process. And they said, where do you use AI last year? Take a guess. Not much at the beginning, loads in the middle, and not much at the end. Why do you think that is? Because AI generates a load of content. Content, right? What do you use ChatGPT for? It just spits out content. It can't do anything really but content. Images, plotting data to tables, text, it's just content. So content lives really nicely in this middle curve, and it's very comforting to us because it's what we know. We like making content. So lots of people use content. Okay, so this year, how's it advanced or changed? Has anything moved at all? Dropped our beer. Oh, but only, yeah, this clicker isn't nuts, isn't it? Only slight risen. So no more content. Everyone's had a bit of a content deluge. They're a bit sick of it. But just a small pickup on that. Maybe we could use AI and data at the end of the journey. Maybe we could use AI to help us analyze at the beginning. But a slow maturity line. So that's just some of the most evidence-driven insights I've seen for AI recently. The main point of my talk will be thinking about potential quadrants of where you can use AI and how you can start to think about maturity of your use of AI. And I'll sort of give you some thought experiments, and I'll show you from my journey how I'm using it in Corsensu. So broadly, the quadrants are, it's a creative task, but AI is doing a lot of the work. Or it's creative and you're doing a lot of the work and AI is kind of helping you. It's procedural, sort of stuff that just needs to get done, and you're driving most of it with AI. Or lastly, the AI is basically doing most of the heavy lifting for you. And you can put a lot of stuff in those quadrants, and you could probably have different descriptors for the axes, but it's a way of starting to think about the use of AI in different methods. In education, I'll just give you a few examples of what that looks like. There are different tasks and jobs and things that need to get done and things that people love doing and things that people kind of don't like doing that can sit well if you start to think about the things that need to be done in education and the things that people like doing, with where AI could sort of be mapped against as well. So you can maybe start thinking about the sort of things you've heard today, the things you do in the world, the things you've read about, and where AI maps really neatly. But most of what I'm going to just share is more of a sort of anecdotal story, a journey of where Corsensu and I would sometimes say that AI is a bit like a co-founder for me, of where from 18 months ago or so when I thought about this, I wanted to bring AI as a sort of an additional tool, but now I see AI as just a fundamental part of my technology stack. My platform's online, my platform's mobile, my platform has AI, my platform is secure. AI is that important because I think to say AI is a feature is underselling it and what it can do. But I started down here. I was a solo founder making a website, making a product, needing to sell it and reach people. Please, AI, help me make content and images and improve my words and stop making me sound like an excited idiot. Like, help me tone it down and look professional. And I was using it for that, and it was generating a lot of content. But then the tool, my platform, is a learning design tool. It helps people make a course. So I was saying, well, maybe the AI could help the human to sort of steer them in the right direction when they're making learning content. Not do it, just steer them. And it was picking up pace. People were quite liking that. I had to tell a lot of people about my product because marketing is super hard, but enthusiasm doesn't get past a spam filter. Nicely worded emails do. So I was using it to sort of help me get my messaging right, and I'm happy to admit that. But back to education, AI is really good if you've got a learning outcome with a small but nearly invisible problem. And it's just an example, but people really love this because look at the schema of a course, and sometimes the outcome will say, by the end of this course, you'll be able to understand data. You can't measure understanding data. It doesn't actually mean anything. So AI can immediately say, red flag, all the literature about learning outcomes says that needs to be improved, and it can then guide you towards a more constructive learning outcome, which could completely change the course of the learning experience. So it's quite an important addition, but it's still human-driven. Moving to the top right, actually there's repeatable patterns in education. AI is very good at synthesizing a huge body of knowledge and just give you a sort of structure. Like if you look at lots and lots of buildings like tenement flats, they're all the same, really, sort of 4 stories, nice big rooms and high ceilings. The blueprint, the architectural plan can be quite similar and repetitive. That's okay, because it doesn't change how you have a child or a house party or a birthday in that flat. It's just a structure. And AI can give you some great educational structures that are being built into platforms like mine. And equally, it's very good at saying, take on the role of. So I have it saying, take on the role of a higher education student or a professional learner, and tell me what you think about this potential learning experience before we build it, before we put it in front of anyone. And it could be 9 p.m. on a Friday night, and I'm just like simulating a learner saying, you're setting me up for an assessment, and then there's another assessment, really significant one, the next week. And I don't think I can prepare for the next assessment. And you just think, right, obviously, it's just that it's a persona sort of brought to life with AI, but it allows you to just check yourself in your own time as much as you want, like those sort of innocent questions that you don't want to put your hand up. It's doing the same thing but for professionals who also don't know when to put their hand up. And then lastly, sort of moving into like an agent AI that just operates autonomously. It can sit in the background, and it's sort of, this is more in the future, but it's picking up tasks, looking at data, analyzing trends, aggregating that data, and starting to do smart nudging suggestions forward. And what I'm getting at is this is a story of how AI producing content is quite simple. It's a bit basic, and AI is better than that. Like, that's fine. It's an entry point. If that's where you're at, it's an entry point. AI agents doing tasks and things we don't like doing and sort of scuttling around like a Roomba on our platforms is quite advanced, but it's definitely the way things are also going, and there's a lot in there that will come out, and you'll either feel it, or you'll be building it, or you'll see it in your world. So it's quite an exciting sort of range of things that are happening. And I'm going to wrap by saying this is my journey, and it'll probably get messy, but that's the sort of advanced journey that I've been taken on. And I'll end by saying I've only done all of this because I was curious, like yourselves, and I call everything when you're curious a serious learning experience. Why am I learning something? What am I hoping to get out of it? Turn it into something. Try and build something, or try and make it something, and call it a serious learning experiment, because then you'll see the outcome of what you've done and the journey you're on. That's me.
If you just give us a couple of minutes while we get everybody settled in for the panel session. I'm just going to grab my phone so I've got time.
I have to psych myself up like to climb onto the chair. Oh, so you've got an advantage here. Like I won't point out what the advantage is, but it's definitely there.
Which one do you want? I have to get it in there.
Okay. I'm still on this mic, haven't I? I'm just remembering what I'm doing here. Okay, so we are kind of running a bit over time, so I'm going to start firing questions at you. I will make sure that we've got plenty of time to open up to the audience as well, though. Thanks very much for some really, really thoughtful and insightful presentations. I'd just like to start by delving into a few of them. I think a lot of the presentations spoke about the change for students, and we touched on what that might mean for teachers. But just looking a bit further into that is, how do you see AI changing the role of teachers, and what do you think the biggest challenges are for them now as they are trying to get to grips with the changes that they're being told, as you were saying, Kenji, we need to do this. So it's for you, Judy.
Yeah, so I think for teachers now, teachers are always short of time, and for AI, there isn't clear policy guidance. And so they don't necessarily have time to experiment with a new tool or a range of tools to work out which is the best one. And there's actually some quite complex legislation around it, like GDPR stuff. So teachers need advice from people who specialise in this to know what is safe in terms of privacy for children to be using. And also there's child protection issues to think about as well, not to mention the pedagogical issues. So I think we need to slow down a bit and help teachers a bit more, give them time for professional learning and give them support in terms of specialist knowledge about this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just to add, if anyone says that they're an AI expert, be very, very wary of them, because unless if they're Kate, who studied it before, they're lying. Everyone learnt it in the last 18 months. And so teachers who are scared about anyone who's scared about the pace of this kind of thing, it is an opportunity. It's a really fast-moving opportunity. So I guess it's that translation of sort of fear and what's going to happen into what would you like it to do? What would you like to happen? Because there's no experts really out there on this one.
I think though yes, our degrees in AI from the 90s are turning out to be useful. But I think teachers, particularly the last couple of years, have been so stressed, so time poor, that they are clutching at anything that will help them with, cover classes. You've got, 3 classes to plan because your colleague is off. Right, okay, what topic are they doing? Right, let's get ChatGPT to come up with lesson plans. It's understandable that they're using this more and more, and coming up with, finding tools that work. We did a professional learning course, a 2-day professional learning course for teachers, and very quickly realised that the answers for one subject teacher were actually very different from another subject teacher. So what we need is subject-specific advice for schools. So not just here are some tools that are useful, but what is going to help music teachers? What is going to help computing teachers with learners who are doing coding? What is going to help PE teachers? What is going to help arts teachers? And trying to figure out how that all works together. So that's our next phase of our project is looking at taking on teachers in particular subject areas to find those best options for those subjects.
That kind of leads me to my next question, which I'll start with you, Kenji. You talked about the guidance is now there, and as CDN, we're now encouraging colleges to use this, both in schools and in colleges. What are your thoughts on that kind of lack of consistency? Because obviously, across local authorities, across countries, there is not that consistency of resource. There's not the consistency of budget. There's not the consistency even of curriculum, with the way that the curriculum works. So, how do we approach that? Because if we're not careful, we do risk widening the gap even more. Based on postcode, based on so many factors?
I suppose, first of all, I have 2 young kids, one in primary school, one in high school. And their lives are so different to mine. Like, they use AI all the time, they use computers, they're on the iPad, they don't see as many friends, they spend time outside. They do not care about privacy. They don't care about sharing data. All the concerns that I have feel pretty old in terms of what they're thinking and how they work in our society. I started out as an English teacher, ESOL, and I always remember it being hard. A lot more working, never enough time, always stuff happening, stuff changing. So although I kind of experience it now, and AI is definitely different, it's kind of like an internet sort of moment, it's just part of change, and that's what educators are used to be very, very honest. And I also think that educators are actually well placed to take advantage of this, because educators make the best prompt engineers there are. I mean, people in this room might be slightly better, but I mean, they are, because what do we do as educators? We work with a group of people who we want to elicit information from. And what we do is we kind of give them examples, give them instructions. When they give us something back and it's not quite right, we go, no, this is what I'm looking for. This is what you should say. And in many ways, as long as our educators have the time to play around with the technology, they genuinely have the skills to get the best from it. And it's perhaps just finding that time and that space that's most crucial at the moment.
We also have the issue of different local authorities having completely different policies. So I think we have one local authority in Scotland out of the 32 who's just blocked AI completely, and others have different varying. So we can't come along and go, this one tool is brilliant, because that's not going to work for every teacher and every local authority. But I'm hoping that we get some sort of sensible approach to this, that not every teacher is going to have to do all of that research each individually, that we can have some sort of strategy that can then go to local authorities, who are the ones who will be sued if it goes wrong. So they have the legal liability. So they're the ones who are kind of going, we're not going to allow this if we're not sure it's going to be safe, which is fair enough. But it can be incredibly frustrating as an educator, trying different things, finding a tool that works, planning it all out, and then finding the next day it's been blocked.
Matt, Judy, would you like to add anything? So Kenji, you touched there when you were talking about your children, you touched on the data privacy. And I think I've experienced kind of both end of that. I've experienced the, just click the button, don't read, just keep going. But I've also, at one of our recent events, with the AI Summit, we had children there. And at some of the exhibition stands, we had competitions and raffles, and we were collecting data, and actually we were being bombarded by questions from children. What are you going to do with this? Why do you need this? What do you want? So for me, it was really quite enlightening to see that the message is starting to get through. So I think, Judy, you talked about some of the stakeholder concerns. And with the increasing use of AI and data analytics in education, we need to balance the personalised learning with students' data privacy rights. What ethical considerations do educators and institutions need to keep in mind when integrating AI into the classroom?
Oh, I wrote my answer out to this one in advance because I saw her questions. Like, that's a hard one, so I'm trying to remember what I said. Okay, so you mentioned the children who came to the Data Summit. They're fab. They're from the Scottish Children's Parliament, and they have calls to action from children about what they want from AI products. A good read. So that gives us some really good clues. So if we start from a children's rights perspective, one thing that we know is that children should have a say about their digital lives as well as their real lives. So they should have a say about what sort of technology they use. And that means getting consent from the children as well as their parents about the AI tools that they use, but making it very clear to them what the privacy considerations are in language which they can understand. And if they're not on board, if they don't give consent, then they should have, in my view, another educational activity which is equally good. Now, that is not how most people are thinking about this at the moment, but it's fairly clear, having just incorporated the UNCRC into Scots law, we need to be thinking about this. And actually, the curriculum that I mentioned with the different education stakeholders is taking that into account. The other thing which we need to think about is children's right to accurate information, which is also part of the UNCRC. That's not compatible with shonky AIs that generate hallucinations all the time. So that's another consideration. And there's more, but I've forgotten the rest of my answer.
Does anyone want to add to that?
I want to say that, so as part of that, the literacy that seems to matter the most is that element of critical thinking, of assessing what you're being told. And especially in an election year in America, the notion of who and what we can trust. We talk a lot about AI, but I have some serious doubts about some of the people I meet in the pub and the claims that they make. Books that I read, newspapers growing up. It was always like a certain newspaper had a certain view, another one had another. We question everything. And to a certain extent, extending that to AI just seems natural to me. As long as you have a sort of, not a healthy skepticism of the world, but the ability to sort of see that not everything you're told is true. Don't think of AI in quite the same way as a calculator. Think of it as somebody you've just met in a pub. And if you work on that principle, you're probably going to be okay. Yeah.
Or your uncle.
Or my uncle.
And so, Matt, you talked a lot about content generation as part of your journey in platform development. So what do you think are the opportunities with data and education as AI matures and it moves beyond generative AI into the more advanced AI systems, intelligent agents, and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before this event started about how can you even remove AI when it's in assistive technology, it's in your watch, it's in your phone. I mean, there's this idea that AI has just suddenly come out of nowhere. It's been around for probably a decade in the public mind. We just didn't really know our bank was using AI to detect fraud way before ChatGPT existed. So I suppose to sort of answer the question, we need to consider what this maturity of AI even looks like. So you've got consumer-facing AI, for example, searching Google, you get a consumer response from a consumer AI tool, and then you've got all the hidden AI that lives in the world. In certain countries, it's behind every TV camera. And so to even untangle the question is quite complicated because you have to think AI is just maturing at such a fast rate that we may end up saying we never had a technology move faster than AI. OpenAI, I believe, is still the fastest launched product, digital product, ever to have existed in our world. They went from obscurity to not just worth billions, but actually getting billions of revenue and being known about by most people that were connected to the internet so fast that it was unparalleled compared to, say, Instagram or Facebook or X or Twitter or whatever you want to compare it to. And so it's moving fast, it's being adopted fast, it's changing fast, it's trying to fix itself as much as make new things that will break even faster. That's quite a scary thing. Like that humans aren't very good at lots of change happening really, really quickly, which is why the answer is kind of muddled, because we're going to talk about AI. But what we mean is all the different potential applications of AI and the risks or benefits associated with all of those different applications. And I only showed 4 quadrants. If I had the ability to show 5 axes and depth, it would probably be a much more nuanced picture. But I'll just finish by saying there's some very, very interesting technology companies that are doing way more than just producing content with AI. And if you just start scratching the surface of what those companies are proposing that you might use it for, it's kind of mind-blowing what will happen. But it'll be things like talking into your watch and sort of changing your potential pension plan in the future because some agents run off and sold things in China and bought things in Australia for you on your behalf because that's your request. And it's your financial advisor, but it's just an app in your phone. But you trust it because of the power it has now. And I think we probably already have those. So it's a complex answer, yeah.
Anybody else want to add before I open the floor to questions? Okay.
Oh, give it to the floor.
Yeah.
You can tell they're eager.
Okay, yeah, I've got one already. Yeah, can you wait
Thanks.
for the questions? Could you maybe just wait for the
Sure.
live stream, please?
Hi guys, thank you all for your talks. I'm Alex. I run a couple of AI companies, as well as Taste Labs. We build agentic solutions for organisations like the Scottish Government. Taste.com is used by, I think we're now sort of several dozen schools, tens of thousands of teachers, but we still struggle with an ultimate problem because of the multitude of different use cases, I think, as Matt's saying. How do we identify if we're actually generating value to teachers? I wonder if the floor had any thoughts on what we could be doing with access to so many users and a multimodal AI application to try and identify whether or not we're actually saving them time or generating something useful.
Okay.
I think Kate has more nuanced answers, but ask them.
As I said, teachers are incredibly time poor. If something doesn't generate value for them, they will stop using it. They will try something very quickly, and if it works, and then they will tell everybody about it. If it doesn't work, it will just get ditched incredibly quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to that, if you can save time, amazing. If you can save money and time, and you can prove it, like you are a multiplier of savings, why wouldn't they use it? If you can try and turn it into a, how could you not? That's the proposition that everyone wants to.
Are you willing to some sort of qualitative and quantitative assessment that can try and sort of condense all these use cases? I mean, because everything you said is fine. Like, we're lucky we've had very, very little churn. But what we're really looking for is some way of sort of producing some sort of report that we can try and assess how it's helping them. So we do ask, and luckily they keep paying us, which means I suppose that they're getting value from it. But we're really looking for something to sort of really qualify how much are these different models helping? How much is our agents sort of making a difference?
Sorry. We have a pilot website as part of our Teachers in Residence project, where what we're trying to do is, I suppose, crowdsource both qualitative and qualitative information from teachers about the tools they're using. And the problem is, normally if you just get teachers to share their experiences, it's quite difficult to synthesize that information. So we're looking at using LLMs to synthesize qualitative information that teachers are sharing according to a kind of structure about responsible use within the classroom. I'm not sure if that's really going to quantify value in that respect. Value in education is a slithery thing. It can go from, I suppose, the value as a human to have experienced education with your peers is an important aspect of human development, to did you have a learning gain on your test? And so we need to try and look at all of those things, I think. Sorry, Kenji.
There's a current call, a CivTech call, looking for you to change the lives of teachers in Scotland and improve them in some significant way, saving time, really, efficiencies. That's where the measure is. I work in an industry where I deliver a 2-hour workshop, and at the end I hand out a bunch of questionnaires and I ask people to write down how much impact did this have. which is a really hard thing to have, but it's a very common kind of question. I think in the college sector, one of our KPIs that we're really worried about is retention. We have around a quarter of our students drop out before the end of the year. And that's a number that's been consistent over decades. And if you could solve a problem like that, that's a very hard number that would impact significantly in our sector and in so many lives.
We're doing that for social carers for the NHS, which is interesting. Sorry, thank you. I was trying to find a way that there's some sort of magic KPI that we can try and gear everything towards, but unfortunately it doesn't sound like there is.
I think also value wouldn't be in terms of financial value in a school, because budgets are just so tight. It would be whether teachers are willing to pay for something themselves if you were looking at the financial value. But yeah, it's how it's a very difficult thing to measure how much is that going to improve a learner's end score. Yeah.
Do we have any questions from our online audience? No. Okay. Yourself?
Hello, and first of all, thank you for your really interesting talks. I want to more ask your opinion, because as especially you said, like students under 18, like if you're under 18, for example, you do not have access to Copilot, but at the same time, like having AI systems and large language models helping students would be a good thing, like could be like a private tutor for them. Or as go on, at the same time, we have a whole training for students. But I was more kind of worried about the other side. Like as a network when first released, well, a lot of people have access to it, and now we are now for like students and under 18 or minors, we have safe contents or family lock. For LLMs, as much as we have heuristics or guardrails, there is always danger of leaks, or even like harmful content, extremely biased, or extreme beliefs that could come out, and if it's not trained, students or people are not trained, they could easily fall into believing that. What's your opinion to how to tackle or prevent like high expenses in order to prevent or fix these issues?
Said we need to teach critical thinking. I've for years would find learners submitting assessment responses, and they hadn't even changed the formatting of the stuff they'd copied and pasted from Wikipedia, and thought that was acceptable, even with the little kind of footnote numbers and things. And so we have to teach critical thinking to learners. We have to get them thinking about what are they taking, how do they put that, formulate that into their own words, take it from different sources and come up with the sort of what is the answer they are presenting. But yeah, that critical thinking is essential.
I agree with that for the older learners, but I think we have a duty of care to younger learners before they've developed those critical thinking skills to prevent them from seeing harmful content. And of course, we've worried about this with, like image filters and things like that online before. But if you think about it in contrast to medicine, we would have to be really sure that there was a strong positive effect for a medicine to accept a whole lot of safety risks with it. And we don't have any evidence about the use of LLMs in schools yet. So maybe we actually need to start doing those studies before we let chaos loose, I think. And there are definitely teachers who are looking at it in a very measured way and thinking about what might happen in advance and having strategies in place. They just need some more support with that, I think.
So one thing about being a teacher over the years is the one constant is that I am constantly impressed, or have been, by my students. They always surprise me. I come in with a set of expectations of things I need to do, things I need to teach them, and inevitably, they will always perform in excess of what I expect them to do. I suspect, I have friends growing up in really tough situations, the way they dealt with it, the way they lived their lives. I believe more of the students in my class now, just through those experiences. In Japan, it's weird. Watching TV, cartoons, there is so much violence in Japanese manga, like really heads exploding, people getting bodies ripped apart, people dying. And this is all designed for programs who are for children aged 6 and above. And yet the consequence of that was not a society that is rife with violence. It's one of the most safest places to live in the world. A lot of that comes from the culture. Critical thinking, the way that we deal with the information that's presented to us, the examples that we have in our society around us, all of this shield us and show us the way to react to things that are presented to us. We still need guardrails, we still need guidelines. But I wouldn't underestimate the resilience of our young people, but we just need to create a culture that allows them to thrive in this new world.
Thank you. I believe we have a question online. Alan?
Question from David. What recommendations related to AI in learning, teaching and assessment were welcomed by the panel from the published independent review of qualifications and assessment?
I'm not sure which document they're referring to. I wonder if is somebody on the online chat to clarify.
Yes, for some clarification of which review is referring to.
So yeah, David, if you're still watching, if you could clarify which independent review, qualifications and assessment? You might be waiting. There'll be a delay of about a minute.
So we have another
might want to talk about
question,
something else in the meantime.
do you have general comments on that?
I mean, we need to think about assessment. We need to think about all that aspect. But we also need to help learners understand how these tools work. We've talked a lot about using tools for teachers. We've talked about using tools for learners, for creating images and all, on ChatGPT answers and things. But it's really important that learners understand how this works in order to get those critical thinking skills, apart from anything else. We've been doing silly little activities of turning kids into a baby ChatGPT program and using word clouds and dice and things to kind of generate things, generate words and sentences, just to help them learn that this isn't intelligent. None of this is intelligent. It's clever, but there is no understanding behind the screen. And I think it's crucial for kids to learn that. It might feel like a best friend. It is not a best friend that thinks back that you are your best friend. Sorry. Yeah, so I think it's crucial to be teaching that alongside safe uses of it.
Thank you. And do we have any response?
Not yet.
No.
If not, I'm getting the.
Sorry.
Wait.
Sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at once here. He says it's our future final report of the independent review published on 22nd of June last year. So it's our future.
SQA changing, becoming Qualification Scotland, looking at the curriculum for excellence, reviewing.
I mean, in terms of helping organisations like the SQA change, so we've recently revised the data science qualification units, and we've put in AI assessment as part of that. So the learners will be using AI tools and trying to sort of have that critical thinking of going, how well has this come up with the answer? They can use AI tools as, to generate images, for example, as long as it's not the full answers. They're saying, this is my answer, here's my text, and an associate image, for example. So I think these organisations just need time to change. We can't, SQA alone have thousands of different units and qualifications. We need to support them in changing. They've sensibly gone, we're not adding AI to all of this. But as units and courses get reassessed, it's then assessing, looking, how can we add AI into that unit sensibly? How can users be using it, learners be using these AI tools as part of that, or being critical thinkers in terms of the output. So, yeah, I think in terms of how these organisations change, we need to support them in adding AI into the assessments.
This is a really quick thing, and then I'll shut up, right? So when I was on the radio, when I was driving in the car, when I was younger, listened to Radio 1. Then I got older, got to Radio 2, went to Radio 4, discovered comedy on Radio 4. Oh, I mean, that was like, it was a moment. Now I drive the car and I talk to ChatGPT. Advanced voice, awesome. I mean, really, it's funny. I'll give you a secret as well. I do a lot of talks online, on Teams, on Zoom, the whole thing. I now have ChatGPT sitting, listening to me talk, and I have its volume turned down, but I can see its text replies. Do you know what I would do in this situation? I would say, oh, you're asking me, how would I respond to a question about the review of qualification? And ChatGPT would come up with an answer. I would think that, no, totally. This would be a moment. I totally missed that at this moment there. Just at that moment, I thought, if only I was at home and you couldn't see my legs. It was like, oh, sorry. That was just flashing through my head.
Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time for tonight. So I would like to ask you to join me in thanking all of our speakers. We have Judy, Kate, Kenji, and Matt. And I hope you'll agree that it's been a very informative and insightful session, with one question just provoking more and more and more questions. I'm sure we could have stayed here for another hour or so talking about this. For those of you who haven't been here before, we usually at our meetups run our open mic session, where we give anybody in the room the opportunity to have 30 seconds to promote an event, a workshop, request support or collaboration. So if anybody would like to do that, would you like to just come up here so we can get you on the microphone? You've got 30 seconds. It's all right, Paul cut you off.
Right. I'll try to be quicker. I'm represented with Kasia, organization called Code Bar, and it's a monthly mentoring session for people from underrepresented groups in data and coding. So every month we're hosted by a different startup. It's usually about 30 women, queer folk, people living with all sorts of adventurous experiences of life, learning to code one-on-one with a mentor. Code Bar. Come and become mentors. Come and become students. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, brilliant. So just before we go, the clicker's going again. Oh, it's gone the wrong way. So I've already mentioned the community. We have a range of community events coming up. Is there a slide on the events that are coming up? No, so we are just about to mark the 10th anniversary of the Data Lab in November. And we've chosen to mark that by kicking off a roadshow around Scotland, which starts next week or the week after? 24th of October. Sorry, I've got it written down here. So 24th of October, and we're going to go around Scotland, a collaboration between our community meetups, but our Skills Academy programme, where we'll be bringing in all of our students from this new cohort, which launches tomorrow, I believe. So we're going to spend a couple of months going around Scotland, events in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee, Inverness, and Stirling. No? Aberdeen. I knew there was 5. And it will culminate in May. So we'll have our roadshow. We have a range of other events planned, but it will culminate in May with the return. That didn't work. With the return of DataFest. So for those who don't know DataFest is our annual showcase of all things data and AI, promoting Scotland on the international stage. It's a 2-day event taking place at the Assembly Rooms in Edinburgh, and tickets are on sale now, so we would be delighted if you were able to join us for that. That's all from me for tonight, so thank you to everybody for taking the time to come out and join us. Thanks to everybody who joined us online, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you.